is time for the Barn Burner Flames Nation mock draft. What a privilege we have to be joined by Cam Robinson, the content director for EliteProspects.com, as well as the director of film scouting. Also, we have Steven Ellis from our friends over at dailyfaceoff.com. He's the associate editor there, and all things prospects and draft fall on your plate, Steven. Fellas, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to be here. It's everyone loves a mock draft.
Yeah, it's a good time of year.
We flipped a bottle cap in actuality because no one carries coins anymore, apparently, to determine who would go first. The premise of the show is simple. We will alternate picks. Each selection will be made as if you are the general manager of each club. We'll be using the draft order that we know is going to happen. And we will hope very, very mightily that it is Philadelphia picking at 32, not Anaheim, if you can read between the lines, as we are filming this on a Monday where the Stanley Cup Finals Game 7 is played in Florida tonight. So I suppose that means, Cam, with the first overall selection, I want you to put on your Mike Greer blazer and hat and let us know who the Sharks, with an absolute cliffhanger here, will select at number 1.
I feel like I should thank, the people in Vegas,
Right.
Our hometown back here in San Jose, the watch parties. I hate that stuff. Walking up straight up.
Congrats to Bill Zito, right?
Please. Of course. I'm sorry. And the Florida Panthers for not coughing up a 3-0 lead. They're taking Mac, right? Obviously, it's Celebrini. No big surprise here. They get a player who is an absolute stud, a two-way monster, elite offense, elite defense, physical, motivated, driven, a thief in the night on the back check, hard on the forecheck. He is going to be a true top-line center. He's going to change the complexion of the Ducks franchise here. He's the type of guy that you can, the Sharks, sorry. He's the type of player that you can see, pushing a team to a cup. And that's all you can really ask for at first overall. So it's a layup for San Jose and not exactly a hometown kid, especially because I'm from BC here, but it's as close to a hometown kid as San Jose could really hope for.
Yeah. Walk us through, it's a weird trajectory for a Vancouver kid, but his dad's job's taking him some places. Walk us through that, Cam.
Yeah, so he, obviously I think he's a North Van kid, if I'm correct, and grew up playing though in the San Jose Junior Sharks program there once they moved to the Bay Area. Then he went to Shattuck, St. Mary's, which is the elite program there, where he played with his good buddy Cole Yzerman. They won a national championship, I believe, with the U15 team. And back then, Yzerman was rated as the higher prospect. Scored more goals, got more points, and then Max started to climb that ladder. But they might even play together at the Brick tournament when they were like 9 and 10 years old too. So those boys go way back. So he didn't come up the traditional route, and then obviously going USHL, dominating with the Chicago Steel, and then being the youngest player in college hockey, the youngest player to ever be nominated and win the Hobie. So he has charted his own course, and it's worked out pretty spectacularly to this point. And so now he'll head to California and see if he can keep pushing that.
Steven, just your thoughts on what Celebrini's accomplished, and maybe if anything has changed for you over the last 12 months, or more just crystallized what you already felt.
Yeah, I love goals, and I know when the conversation came up of looking at Celebrini versus Yzerman early on, it's like, man, it's more fun watching Cole Yzerman, but it became very clear so quickly with the Chicago Steel last year that this is a guy who could just do it all at both ends. And watching him play at the U18s in person for that first time last year just took over, and he was playing with an injured shoulder, but he, despite being the youngest guy on that team, he still took charge. I guess one of the youngest. He took charge there. Talking to anybody on that team, they're just like, this kid's special. He's going to go somewhere. And then you see what he did in college this year. That it's so hard to see it. You'll see a lot of guys who've got that skill at junior that just won't immediately make an impact once they go to college. That wasn't an issue for him, even after coming off of the injury that he had. So he's going to be quite the player. I'm excited to see what he's doing in the NHL come October.
And finally, I shouldn't say finally, a very nice centerpiece for the Sharks to work around. And it's all of a sudden, it was 16 to 17 years. They made the playoffs, I believe. Then Doug Wilson gone. Been pretty barren, but suddenly, Cam, that's got the looks of a system that's going to have a lot of pieces, given the 2 first-rounders this year, the pieces they've added, and they'll still probably liquidate some vets too.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like Steven was saying that we're looking forward to see what Celebrini does in the fall. And it's like, I also think that he will be in the NHL in the fall, but it is not 100%. And I think that that's actually kind of fun to think about too, right? Like Will Smith is coming out this year out of Boston College, which I actually thought he should have stuck around for another year and Matt could come out. But especially like, what if they pull Yzerman at 14? And maybe we'll get to that later on here. And then they can just go both play at BU together and then come out together. And like, there are a lot of fun storylines just from our side of the world anyways. But no, I do think he will be in there. And they'll be a bad team. And hell, if they did that, maybe they're welcoming 2 first overall picks in 25, right? Like Mac and James Haggins could be cruising into town at the same time because they will be. You got to imagine they're going to insulate them a little bit here with some veterans. They went and got Barclay Goodrow, but it's going to still be lean times in San Jose next season.
All right, pick number 2 belongs to the Chicago Blackhawks. We're talking about that San Jose franchise trajectory. Chicago just seems maybe a year or two ahead, but they've picked high. It's the second or third time here. They're way up at the top of the draft after Connor Bedard last year. 2 is an interesting spot here, Steven, because there's options here, and this is where we get into the story of the draft. You might have names out of a hat from 2 to 10 here based on people's rankings because there's so many different types of players that are all slated to be quite good, Steven. So what does Kyle Davidson do here? Does he chase a partner for Bedard? Does he insulate the team on the blue line? What do you do?
See, I think the idea of watching Connor Bedard and Ivan Demidov together would be so much fun, but Demidov is not my pick. It is Artem Levshunov. And, it's I feel like this year, because obviously there's a lot of questions still about what's going to happen in next year's draft. There are some good defensemen on the way. Charlie Trethewey is one that I'm really keeping my eye on there. But I feel like you just got to go out there and get a need. And maybe it doesn't have to be Levshunov. Maybe you go out there and you bet high on Zane Parekh. I would love to see a guy like Zane Parekh. Maybe you go and get size in Anton Salayev. But I think with Levshunov, you see a lot of projectables there. He's got good size. He can be aggressive. He's kind of just this free mover out there that loves to move the puck. And I feel like there's just still more to his game that we're going to see. Out of anybody at the high end of this draft, this is someone who's had to do a lot of change already in his career. 2 years ago, he was playing in Belarus, didn't know a whole lot of English, goes to USHL, looks fantastic. Then he goes and plays in the NCAA, where he's the top scorer in Michigan State University. That's 3 teams in 3 years, 3 different levels of hockey, when a lot of European players are playing with the same group of guys kind of from the age of 7, 8 until they turn pro. And I think, the fact that he's been able to adjust to every new scenario just makes me think, what else does he have to do here? When he's more comfortable, with the lifestyle here, more comfortable learning, being better at English and things like that, and then eventually turning pro, I feel like there's just going to be more to him, both as a person and as a player, that could just make him a more interesting pick. So I know not everyone loves him at number 2, but I think if let's say he's your top pairing defenseman down the line, I still think you want to get some more defensive help with that team. And I know Demidov would be more fun, which is why this feels maybe not as entertaining, but I just think that you're going to get a piece of that blue line that's going to make you very dangerous for a long time. So it makes sense.
Cam, what's the pros and cons of Demidov versus Levshunov here?
I mean, I think Steven hit the nail right on the head, is that, Chicago has prioritized some smaller skilled players up front in recent years. Obviously they have Bedard, they had Oliver Moore fall to them last year, and they were actively trying to move up to target that player. And so they were thrilled to get him at 19. They've got Reichel, they've got Frankie Nazar. So they have these kind of high offensive, high octane, smaller type players. And then the blue line, they got Korchinski, they got Vlasic, they have Seth Jones, but realistically, they do need that pillar of strength on the back end. So, if I was putting my money on it, I would probably guess it's going to be Levshunov as well. And like Steven said, it's not the sexiest pick, but he is at this point in time the most complete defenseman in the draft. Mm-hmm. Early on in the season, his activations, there wasn't a single play he didn't jump into, being either that, that high guy looking for the drop pass or leading the rush. And he kind of quieted that a little bit, tiled it down a little bit as the year went on, and started to improve some of those defensive positioning and that rush defense. So I don't think he's a slam dunk one. He's probably a top pairing defenseman, but again, I'm not willing to bet my mortgage payment on it. So it's a safe play at 2. You're leaving upside on the board, I think, at both forward and defense. But it's a safer play. So it makes a lot of sense, and it's probably what's going to happen.
I'll ask you both yes or no. Does he play in the NHL next year, Lev Shunov, who, as you noted, 3 different levels, 3 different leagues, 2 different countries the last 3 years?
I don't want him to be there next year. I don't think there's a reason to rush him. That's the thing. It's like this team's going to be bad for years. Don't throw him to the wolves next year.
Okay, Cam?
Yep. I agree.
Okay.
I think, send him back for a year.
Interesting pick number 3 here, because the Anaheim Ducks have been picking high for a while. They have a lot of prospects, and I don't think Pat Verbeek's happy with where things are at, and maybe isn't in love with some of the guys that he has on payroll here. I'm fascinated by what the little ball of hate does as GM here at pick number 3, because there's so many options left. You get to be Pat Verbeek today, Cam.
Awesome. I was going to have some fun if Steven took Demidov there at 2, because I do think Pat Verbeek and company, they march to the beat of their own drum.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody and their dog had Adam Fantilli at 2 last year for the most part. They took Carlson. We heard a lot. You
said it at the draft floor. I will give you credit, Cam. You looked at me and said, I think they might take Carlson here.
Yeah, well, and I did a show, an on-air one, where they were asking me right before the draft, and Verbeek was like an arm's length away from me, and they're like, "What are you hearing about at 2?" And I was like, "Oh, I got to be careful. I got Patty right here." But we did hear some buzz, and they took Mason McTavish earlier than pretty much everyone projected as well. Okay. So they don't, they'll do their own thing. But so you look at that prospect pipeline, you see like it is McTavish and Carlson and Cutter Gauthier down the middle. On the blue line, they've got Pavel Mitsyukov, they've got Olin Zellweger, Tristan Leno. They have so many defenders coming up too. To me, this is easy money to slide Ivan Demidov on one of those wings, on one of those guys' wings, and be like, here is our Kirill Kaprizov, and he is going to run roughshod. And the fact that he showed up, going to Florida, going to that Gold Star camp, getting measured, having like proper measurements that we're not getting from Ska's MHL team, where it's like, it says he's 5'11", 168. Maybe he's 5'9 and a half and like 160. Nope. He's like 6'1", 192. That's a serious size difference. And the fact that he's speaking English and he's like, I'm going to play the year in the K, and then I'm coming to the NHL. It's like, that's like, sign me up. Like, send him to Anaheim and let him run beside Carlson or McTavish for the next decade plus. It's like, that's going to be some fun. So I don't think Anaheim will be afraid to do it. And if he's sitting there at 3, they're taking him.
And yeah, really quick. If it was Demidov to Chicago at 2, are you taking the big man? Is that what the twist is going to be? Because
I was giving him Tej.
Okay. Oh, geez, settle down.
Hey, man, that's not just that's mock talk here.
I know. I'm afraid I asked.
Talk.
This is Flames Nation. People are very, very wound up about Tej, my friends.
I got lots of words for you on that.
Yeah, good. We'll get there. Hopefully not too soon. Maybe wait till 9. Steven, just a quick thought on Demidov. It sounds like he played in the league. He was too good for the whole year. Russians don't get to go to the international stuff. You can't really knock the player, but there were some circumstances I think scouts wished were different this year. Is that fair?
Absolutely. Not as to the same level as Matvei Michkov. Obviously now Michkov's coming to the NHL next year, so didn't really matter in the end. But Demidov is my favorite player in this draft. He's just so much fun to watch. He's so skilled, and like you said, had he played in the KHL, I'm thinking he's playing a few minutes a night, or he gets loaned to a bad team, and you're questioning, like with Michkov, it's like, okay, I would have liked to see what he could do when he's not playing on Sochi. I would like to see him kind of take advantage of playing on Ska, and we never got to see that really. Yeah. I think here with Demidov, I just think the role of him. He's so much fun to watch, and to watch the numbers he put up this year. Yeah, the MHL is not the strongest league in the world, but to do double, like 2 points per game all season long while dealing with multiple injuries, like I love what he's going to do. He's going to be a star.
We'll stay with you, Steven. We go to Columbus, where things are very familiar, but they're also brand new, as they have their 3rd coach in 14 months, a brand new general manager in Don Waddell, who came over from Carolina. I guess he wanted to make it GM money, had to leave Carolina to do that. And it's a system that's got a bunch of intriguing young prospects, but just it hasn't, for some reason, come together at the NHL level yet. What do you do at pick 4 if you're Don Waddell? So
I know Cam likes this player more than I do, but I still think this would be an awesome pick, and that is Tej Ginla. I want him to go to Columbus. Sorry, Flames fans, I know, but this is a guy that's just watching him play in person for the first time with the under 18s. Like, you don't get to see the same level of stuff that you see online. I should say the other way around. Online, you don't get to see what you get to see when you watch him in person, because he brings so much energy. And Cam and I were sitting there in that gold medal game, Canada versus USA at the U18s, and just in awe with how much energy he brought to every single shift. Like, this is a guy that doesn't need to score a lot of goals to be effective. And I think that's important. 47 goals is awesome, but that's not even the thing that necessarily stands out to me. It's the fact that he's relentless. He wants the puck. He's a ball of energy out there. He's not going to go out there and physically destroy you. He's not going to knock you down and drop the gloves in a fight. I do see him getting into the odd fight like Jerome, but I think with him, it's just, ignoring the pedigree, ignoring the family bloodlines. This is a player who's grown so much since his WHL rookie season. And I think that we're just kind of scratching the surface on what he's capable of. So, heck, why I would not see Chicago doing it. I wouldn't have even been surprised if he went to number 2, to be fully honest, because I just think you bet on that upside with how much talent he is. So I like him there at number 4.
Is he a center or a winger? Because it sounded like he played 3 or 4 games at the start of the year down the middle, and everything after that was on the wing where he dominated. But Kelowna doesn't have a lot of centers returning. There's opportunity to move to the middle. Give me your quick take on the wing or center for Jerome's son.
I think winger, but he did say that at the combine he wants to play more center, and he's going to push to do that. It was a good opportunity for him to play wing this year and get more opportunities, but he seems to want to play center. But I don't know. I'm still thinking wing. I think what he did this year showed that he should be a winger.
I think he could play the middle of the ice. He played it coming up before moving to junior. We've had a lot of discourse around Berkeley Catton. Is he big enough to play center? He played the middle of the ice this year in Spokane, and Teach played the way. I think that, in the NHL, that we could see that flipped, where Teach, obviously he's got to prove it at the junior level first. But I think, like Steven said, with the details to his game, like the little stick lifts, the defensive positioning, on the forecheck, I think he could play the middle of the ice. Not to say that he will long term, but I think he could play the middle of the ice. And I wouldn't be shocked if he went at that 4 spot. He's a player, and obviously unsurprising coming from that family. But I got to talk with him a little bit in Finland there, and just humble, gracious, good head on his shoulders. Traveling back, I was traveling back with the Canadians after they won, and just seeing him interact with people too, just a genuine human being, with fans and stuff too. And obviously coming from Pops there, who's just one of the greatest humans ever. It's not a big surprise, but yeah, he's going to be a good player, and he's going to probably be a leader and someone that you can build a team around up front.
Future captain, no question about it.
Yeah. Letter scores a lot, and wing, that was his dad. There might be a lot of overlap there. Cam, you got to give me your best Kent Hughes, Jeff Gorton face after Iginla goes at 4. No. It does feel like the Habs are lined up for a forward here. They do pick 5. And I think they would have thought there's a good probability that Iginla gets them. That might not be their guy, but what do you do here now at 5? Because there are some other dynamic players here, and they do have a lot of D in the system, but you still want the best player available, I imagine.
Yeah, and for me, my best player available is clearly sitting there. And I think that Tej would be on that list, but I think he might be 3rd on their forward wish list.
Okay.
And so I think it's Demidov is 1.
Yep.
And I think Caden Lindstrom, who is going here in this mock draft, is number 2 on their board. So if Demidov is not there, it's going to be Caden Lindstrom. And talk about a unique player, 6'4", 215, middle of the ice. Yeah. Hits like a truck. This guy, guys bounce off of this kid. Yeah, it's junior hockey, so he's got a size advantage. But guess what? He's going to have that size advantage in the NHL too, because he is that big. He's raw still. He hasn't played a ton of elite level hockey, and we're just seeing his growth go up exponentially. He's already has plus rated skating for my regard, and it's kind of ugly. It's super powerful just because he's so strong, but he looks a little bit like me at men's league, where the knees aren't bent enough. It's not lengthened far enough. So it's, you get him hanging out with Barb Underhill or a skating coach, they're going to lengthen out that stride. And we're going to have someone who's really burning through, going wide on guys. I'm not going to drop names because I was told specifically, do not tell them I said this, but a high end player in the WHL told me just unasked, reached out to me and said, he is by far the hardest matchup in the Western League.
Really?
Not even close, especially his small area game. He is untouchable with his hands and his strength and his puck possession, his puck protection. He is just I love him. He's arguably my favorite player in this class. I had Byfield 1 a few years ago, and I took a lot of heat for it, and I just stuck to my guns on it. And I've got him Lindstrom 2 on this board, and I'm not sure anybody else has got him that high up. So I think he has got like number 1 center upside, and not just one, but like unique. One of these guys where it's like, how do we match up against this guy? So you slip him into Montreal. Like I would have probably, I think if he's there, I think Columbus takes him, because I think they would match up. Like having him and Fantilli down the middle would just be like a nightmare for everybody else. But if he gets to 5, I think Montreal's going to sprint up there.
So Steven, tell us about the concerns around the injuries. And there was sort of a thought that if this was an NHL team and it was the playoffs, he would have come back and played, but maybe because it's his draft year and, you've got to secure the bag here as a young man who's very driven, and the eyes are on the prize. Like, this is about the NHL. This isn't about Medicine Hat, maybe as much as a 20-year-old guy that's going nowhere it might have been.
Yeah, so his representation at the NHL Draft Combine basically sent out a letter to all teams saying, like, look, he's good to go, he's ready, and we saw what he did when he came back from his injury in the playoffs. In that first game, I think he had like 6 or 7 shots. He kind of tailed off a little bit, but you could tell there it was a guy who hadn't played a lot of hockey this year, and it's too bad because you look at the numbers he was putting up this year, like. He was like a couple hat tricks away from being a goal per game player. And the way he was able to take over games, like Cam said, he's just so unique. You don't find players like this often. And he's a natural born athlete too. This is someone that played high level baseball, track and field. So he's very involved in a lot of different sports. And he said that kind of just taught him how to prepare for things mentally better. And that really helped him when he was injured, just to be like the whole time, like, you know what, like, I believe myself, whether I get fall in the draft, whatever, it doesn't matter to me. I still believe that I can be a game-changing player. And a guy that can go out there and physically dominate. Like, you see a player like that compared to someone like Adam Jekko, however you pronounce his last name, and you say, he doesn't have the same scoring abilities, but physically there's a lot of the same things. They're both big centermen. But when it comes to Lidstrom, just nobody in the WHL is able to overpower him there. And asking guys at the Combine who was the hardest player to play against, Lindstrom was the name that appeared just as often as Carter Yakimchuk, who goes out there to kill people. So I think Lindstrom, he's going to be, let's say he's not a number 1 center. If he's your number 2, that's one hell of a number 2 centerman. Like, that's the thing. Like, there's so much upside here. And I think he'd be a perfect fit for Montreal. But knowing how Montreal has drafted the last couple of years, they could just go with like Cole Hudson, number 5, or just go completely off the board and find some guy no one's heard of, because Montreal just likes to do things differently there.
They did pass on Mishkov just a year ago, so we won't put something crazy past them. That's for sure. Okay, so we've talked about defense a ton leading into this draft class, and now we're 5 picks deep, and we got 4 forwards off the board, fellas. So I feel like that's a bit of a twist, but maybe it isn't. Maybe it just means we're about to get on a major D heater, and it starts with the Utah Hockey Club. Steven, who do they take at 6? Probably more D left than they thought there'd be.
Yeah, so this one's difficult because you'll talk to different people and they'll tell you different defensemen. But the guy that I was very on Sam Dickinson, like high on Sam Dickinson, as high as number 4. But I want to see Zane Parekh go out there and do some damage for that team. And it's a team that's got a ton of size already. And I remember doing my ranking of their prospect pool last year and saying, like, okay, this Coyotes franchise has way too many guys that are 6'4" and taller. So I like the ability of, you're not drafting size here, but a guy who can still hold his own physically. And you see the goals, you see the points, but he's also someone who understands he needs to be better defensively. And I feel like his play from September compared to what we saw in the Memorial Cup was someone who was a lot more engaged in his own zone, willing to throw the body, willing to get physically engaged there. I don't have those same concerns defensively as I did a few months ago. So bet high on him. I want to see him pass into Logan Cooley from the point and running an amazing power play one day.
You nodded and smiled, Cam, with the Parekh pick. It does seem to fit Utah very nicely. They've got a lot of size, and those numbers are hard to ignore at this point.
Yeah, and like, is there another organization that like needs that on the blue line more than them, right? Like, all the running jokes that their only signed defenseman is not even playing hockey these days. They have a bunch of RFAs, but they need someone to drive a power play unit. They need Zane Parekh, and like, He's very good. Like, he's a little underrated, I think. People slag him a little bit for his defensive effort or some of his positioning and stuff like that. But I don't actually think it's that bad. Like, I think there's a very clear path to him being NHL average at playing defense. And then he has like this super high offensive ceiling, right? And he's got a little bite too, which I like that in my offensive guys on the blue line. Like, he's unafraid to like chuck an elbow into some guy's ear if they piss him off or something too, right? So I don't mind that too. So I like it. I think he's not going to be Quinn Hughes with that kind of mobility or Cale Makar or something like that, but he's going to be like a top flight offensive generator at 5-on-5 on the power play. He shoots the puck a ton. He's a sniper. He can really transform a top power play unit and really get offensive driving. And Utah, they've got a lot of really talented young forwards who they need someone to get them the puck. And so he would fit that bill for sure.
What does Ottawa need at 7? It's been a disappointing run for a team. Everyone's been waiting to turn the corner, and this is the year. No, this is the year. Well, hang on, we were wrong, but this is the year. What do they do at 7 here?
Yeah, I if it was me, I might do something different. But I think because they have a lot of like left shot defensemen, is that it's hard for them to step up and be like, okay, we'll take Dickinson or we'll take Zebuyam. I mean, they could, and if that's the best player on the board, I think they would still. But I'm going to have a little fun here, and I'm going to give him Beckett Seneca.
Wow.
Rise. This kid's been, the loaf of bread before it hits the oven. He grew like 4 inches, over the last offseason and through the year. Late riser growing and late riser up draft boards. He had to be a player at 5'10". And when you're a player at 5'10", like, you have to be smart. You have to have like good manipulation skills. You have to, your feints and your fakes all baked in. You can't just rely on running over guys or going wide and protecting with a long reach. And now all of a sudden he's 6'2.5". He's clearly still growing. He's going to be 6'3". He has some of the best handles in the class. Like, his mixtape, his highlight reel is like off the charts, right? Like, yeah, it's a little Bambi legged at times. He looks a little wobbly because he's still kind of getting used to that frame, and he's not super filled out yet, but there's a serious upside here. And you can make the case that like a kid like Berkeley Catton basically played at that rate all season long that Seneca did down the stretch and in the playoffs. But size matters. And I think that for Ottawa, that to inject some like high level talent into the organization is something that they need. And maybe not the best player available on my personal board, but it's a fun pick, and I don't think it's out of the question to see Seneca jump into that top 7.
He's really risen, Steven. Like, there's some guys with helium here. I think of T.J. Ginla being, maybe he's a first rounder, and then there's a few other guys you'd never heard of, like the Perisic kid. I don't think was playing Western League a year ago. Might be a first rounder. There's a guy that caught fire, but Seneca at in the top 10, that is quite something, is it not?
Yeah, nowhere close to that at the start of the season. And I got to say, I've never heard a prospect with a deeper voice than his. Like, I don't know if he just wants to have a career of just being a bass guitar, like not a big player, like just a bass guitar. He'd be good at it. But honestly, just like, I remember watching him play a couple of years ago in the minor hockey ranks here, and this dude wasn't strong, was getting pushed around a lot. Now he's the one doing all the pushing, and he's got, I think just when you get these guys who are risers like this, it's just like, how much more does he have to go? And I think that's the big question for me. And I think still a long way to go. We saw Oshawa's offense. Now, to be fair, London Knights were on a different level in the OHL playoffs, but with Seneca out of there, you saw how different Oshawa was. They just couldn't find the ways to generate goals and get around the net and make plays happen. So they really could have used him. But I do think that this is a guy that I could see him go as high as this pick. I could see him fall to 15th, whatever. I still think no matter what, he's going to be a good value pick, because I just think that there's more to his game that I think is going to be unlocked. And I think with watching him play with Cal Ritchie for one more year is going to be pretty entertaining.
2 picks till the Calgary Flames jump in at 9. We're in the mock draft with Cam Robinson and Steven Ellis. Steven, you jump to the podium for Ron Francis in Seattle at pick 8, and 4 of those dynamic 6 defensemen that could go in the top 10 are still left. I've got bad news for that class. There will not be 6 going in the top 10. It'll be a maximum of 5. What do you do if you're the Kraken here?
If I'm the Kraken, I'm going Zebuyam. And I feel like if he went any lower, it would be, I couldn't see it happening. I think, this is a guy that we saw him at the World Juniors, and I thought that was just a really good opportunity for him to show like the average fan just how good of a player he was. And then you go and watch him play in Denver, and he goes out there and gets 50 points this year, a great freshman season. I remember watching him at the top prospects game in Michigan last year and thinking like this guy was probably the best player on the ice, and he was not a draft eligible at the time. Obviously, being a late birthday meant he wasn't drafted with the rest of his age group. But he's not a big guy, but he's difficult to play against. He's very competitive, and already he's a proven winner. He played a big part of that World Junior team. He played a big part of that Denver team that won the national title. Like, that's a lot already. And I just think, he's impactful every single game. We don't see a lot of off nights for him. And I think that someone like that is just going to be a box checker for sure. So Seattle, if I'm correct, hasn't drafted a defenseman high in the first round. This would be the first opportunity to get a star defenseman.
Quick reaction to that, Cam?
Love it. Love Z Bouillon. Would have taken him at Calgary at 9 with the next pick, and I think they would love to take him at 9 too. But I think it's spot on with Seattle. I think they go D. I think they go D even if a couple of forwards are there, and Bouillon makes a ton of sense just because of that. Even if the offense, like the numbers really pop, obviously at Denver, and I do think he has offensive upside at the NHL level, but maybe not like 70-point juice. But he has like just this terrific fallback game to be like a stud defensively too. And no, I think I actually a lot of internal battles almost putting him as my number 1 D on my personal list too. So I have a lot of time for him.
Okay, so you are Calgary. You get to be Craig Conroy, your second draft. You had Honzik last year. It has not been a good draft, +1 season for Honzik. Injury is a big part of that. You got 2 first-rounders. You've got needs all over. They don't have a kid in the system that projects to be a top center nor a top pair defense. You also don't have kids in the system that necessarily project as a top line winger. You might even have a goalie, though. I don't know, but maybe not. You could go anywhere here, Cam. And before you make the pick, because we got everyone's attention right now, big shout out to our sponsors of the mock draft. It is Betway, McLeod Law, and Village Honda. Cam, you get to go to the podium as Craig Conroy, pick number 9. Jerome's not with you. He's with Tej getting photos done with Columbus. What do you do here?
I got to channel my inner Craig here, who's just a beauty, by the way. I'm torn a little bit because, like you said, they need a lot of stuff, right? They need that high end center. They need a lot. They need a lot of talent, but I think it's too tempting with Sam Dickinson sitting on the board there because, like, if you go Berkeley Catton here, you're like, yeah, we're taking a big swing on upside, and then you're hoping with that Vancouver pick at the end of the round that you can get yourself a nice defenseman. But I think in this case, you go, we want a pillar because a kid like Sam Dickinson is like his basement is probably still a second pair guy. Like he's that good, right? At 6'3", 200 pounds, like has the potential to be just like an excellent like play starter and play killer coming back the other way. Now, I've been like a fairly vocal critic of his brain this season because like some of the decisions he makes with the puck, it's like, spit takes. They're so bad. Some of his defensive positioning, like even in the Mem Cup final there, where he had a great game offensively, he's still swimming on the ice in the defensive zone, looking like he's at the pool in the summer. So, there's a lot of work left to be done to kind of clean that up. But I've come in my own assessments, I've come a long way on these kind of like big, toolsy, good skating defensemen. They don't need to be geniuses to be top 4 guys or even top pairing guys. And it's just continuing to be proved that you don't need to be a genius to do it. So I think that he has the tools are strong enough. The size is there, the skating's there, that he is like basically a locked in top 4 guy with that potential to be a top pairing player as well. And at 9, that's the ticket. I think that's what Calgary really kind of needs to sink their teeth into.
I've heard comps of Pietrangelo, Hanifin, like could probably play all units, but maybe isn't power play 1 quarterback. Is that fair in either of your minds, both of your minds?
Yeah, I think so. I think that he could, on a certain team, be a PP1 guy, but you would hope that he's your power play 2 guy, or maybe if you're running a 3+2. But yeah, he's, I liked Pietrangelo's brain a little bit more, but tools wise and like stature and all that, I think it's a decent comp for sure.
Steven?
Yeah, I think, the thing about for me this year, I wanted to see him just take that next step offensively this year. And he did, 70 points, almost 20 goals. He did that. I remember watching him play in the GTHL, the Toronto Marlboros. And you mentioned, Cam, the brain, it doesn't feel like it really improved since then. That's kind of the problem there. So I think this is one of the guys where skill is going to trump out, brain power. Man, I was almost thinking like it'd be good if he went to New Jersey and he could just spend an afternoon with Jack Hughes to kind of learn how to think the game a bit better, and maybe it would be a completely different story. But I still think that the talent there is huge, and it's just let's see it every single night.
I'll just add though that Luke Hughes has spent like his whole life with Jack, and he's still trying to figure out how to play too. So
yeah,
I'm not sure a weekend with Jack's gonna sort it out.
Yeah. That is true. That is true. I did spent a day at their house, and you could tell the difference between them just a little bit.
Yeah, fair. Yeah. Body and brain, I'm sure. Okay, so there's two other D on the board here. Let's just talk about them really quickly. The monster, the 6'7" guy that probably is going to play north of 230 pounds, Anton Salayev, that was in the KHL, is there. Also, you've got the local kid, Carter Yakimchuk, who is a whole lot of chaos. 33 goals, right shot, big, will scrap. Just both of you, I want you to compare and contrast those bigger options against Sam Dickinson, who's not small, and maybe what that sort of battle or dialogue is like when you're debating these three defensemen.
For me, it's like Dickinson and Yakimchuk like isn't like a crazy comparison. Defensively, Dickinson's already more refined for sure. Okay. Yakimchuk is like, he's basically like Mitch Marner on the blue line with how he dangles guys. Like honestly, like he walks guys like he's a little man on the point, and then he has the big shot too. But like lots of work left to be done in the defensive zone and guarding his own blue line. But got a mean streak, which I like. And then Salayev, like he's just like, the potential is that he's going to be like a suffocating defensive presence out there, but not much of a play starter, not much offensively, I don't think. In that's, even saying that like his role in the KHL wasn't to do that. But I don't see the tools, the handles, like you'll miss outlet passes by 20 feet sometimes. Like it's, maybe it comes along, but I don't see like early season people are like, this is the next Victor Hedman. It's like, no, it's not.
Yeah, a good 2 weeks. Not the full season. Yeah. Steven, just those three defensemen? Yakimchuk, Dickinson, and Salayev.
That was a wild start to the season, wasn't it? Like the hot takes, I guess, when we were all bored in August and September, the stuff we were saying. Comes to Dickinson, I think, he's the most well-rounded of the three there. I do like him more than the others. I think of Yakimchuk, I don't know why he never played forward. And I was shocked when he said at the draft combine that he actually never played forward growing up. It was always defense. But he named the players you like to watch, Taylor Hall and Jordan Eberle. It's like, dude, you're a defenseman. But you see the offensive skill. I kind of wish he did play forward. Still some questions about the skating and the own zone play. I still feel like, for all the high-low reel moves you'll see that allowed him to score 30 goals, he'll also try and dangle someone in his own zone in front of the net, lose it, and like, what are you doing there? And the Salayev, it's kind of the same thing where he's not. I know some comparisons stylistically to Zdeno Chara. Obviously, Zdeno Chara knew how to put pucks in the net. I don't see Salayev doing that. I guess the one thing is we have seen a lot of these KHL defensemen that just explode offensively randomly out of nowhere. Maybe he's the next. I don't think so, though. His thing will be smothering players and making sure you don't get to the net. So three kind of different players.
We'll get there. New Jersey at 10 is Steven Ellis. The Devils didn't move this pick for Jacob Markstrom. They may indeed move for something else. I feel like the big game hunting this summer. But Steven, in this imaginary universe where you're the GM of the Devils, you have pick number 10. What are you doing?
I'm going Consta Helenius. I mean, he's not my favorite. Like I like Berkeley Ketton more, but I think like the thing is I could see Helenius being that third line center that can also play a little higher in the lineup. And if you've got Hughes and you've got Nico Hischier and you've got like Helenius there, like that's not a bad combination there. I almost feel at some points he got underrated this year. You see the numbers he put up this year, great numbers in Liga, something we don't typically see from a player like that. But then you also look at some of the guys he compared with, and statistically, the last big name guy, a draft prospect to go out there and dominate the Finnish league to kind of the same level was Kaapo Kakko. We haven't seen Kaapo Kakko become that type of player in the NHL. I think the one thing with Helenius, I do like his two-way game. I do like that he has played some wing. The World Championship, man, I was really hoping to see something there, but they never really gave him a chance. And it didn't help that he wasn't very good at the U18. So I know that the end of the season wasn't good, but I still think he's got the raw talent to still be a very effective player. So I just think from a fit that would work. Berkeley Ketton, I love Berkeley Can. I'm disappointed he hasn't been picked in this mock draft yet, but I think even though we have the power to make that happen, I just think that this just seems like it would kind of make sense.
Yeah, for the Devils, it does. And people seem to rave about whoever gets him is going to be thrilled. It's not the offensive wizardry. It's just how complete of a player he is. Is that fair, Cam?
Yeah, he won't overwhelm with his size or his speed or his strength, but he just maximizes like every situation. Disappointing U18s. He obviously didn't want to be there. It was kind of a wet fart to end the season, and which is too bad because he had a potential to like continue that rise up and really show out, right? And then the U18s were and then he didn't do much at the World Championships in and out of the lineup. So I think that's probably why he will be available outside of the top 10. And also the pure upside. But yeah, he's a very intelligent player who's going to play, whatever, a couple different roles. He'll be versatile. And yeah, so I think it makes sense for the Devils. They have some center depth and they can move him around the lineup.
It's a different story if he dominates that U18s, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
We go to 11, Buffalo. It feels like everything we said about Ottawa, we could say it again with Buffalo, but for longer. They're missing something. No one's exactly sure what it is. What do you do at 11 here?
It's tough because I was hoping Berkeley Catton was going to be gone, so I didn't have to pass on him here because it's Buffalo has so many players like Berkeley Catton. Like they've got Zach Benson, Matt Savoy, Yuri Kulik. Like they have all these like kind of undersized, super skilled wingers. Noah Oostland. Like they just have all of them. They have all of these players, and it's like you can't have all of the same player. Yeah. And then you look at their blue line, it's like all left shot defensemen. So it's not like I can give him Salayev here because that doesn't make any sense, right? So it's so I'm torn right now. But I had a little fun with Ottawa. Let's have a little fun with Buffalo here too. I'm giving them Cole Yzerman.
Oh,
because they need something. So why can't that something be a sniper, right? Especially if they buy out Jeff Skinner. He's Jeff Skinner 2.0. He's not actually, but he is this enigmatic elite trigger man where I did a film room on him earlier this month, and like I've been a pretty big critic of his throughout the season just because he's so frustrating, but goodness, he can score in a myriad of ways. And he has this like burgeoning power forward game where like when he turns it on and he gets a little mad, like he'll drive guys through the boards, the end boards. He will catch someone in open ice in the neutral zone and like have them gasping for air, right? Just suck the wind right out of their lungs. So if someone can just light a fire under this kid, you could have like a really unique power forward goal scoring winger that could pop you 35, 40 goals on the regular. I could say Buffalo could use something like that, right? So I'm giving him Cole Yzerman, and it's higher than I would have him on my board personally, and I do. But I do think this is like the area that we start to see teams start to look at that and just being like, do we swing on big upside? I think so.
Yes or no, Steven? He's the purest scorer to come out of the draft.
No question about it. He's one of my favorite players in this draft, and it's because I love guys who score goals. And you look at the number of goals he put up this year, like 57 or 58. It's like that still felt disappointing because it's the guy who was able to put up the number he did last year. It was like 69 goals or whatever. It's like he could have hit 70. Like this guy knows how to shoot the puck. He knows how to kill people out there. And if anyone can get him to commit to being a better defensive forward, it's Jay Pandolfo next year.
Man, Philadelphia's got to be doing backflips. That they could either look at a huge, nasty defenseman, a high-end skill defenseman, or the electric centerman Catton out of Spokane. What do you do at 12, Steven? And I've already seen Flyers fans just starting hashtags, trying to manifest it into reality that Catton could go to them at 12. Is that what you do?
So I was thinking, hey, this would be kind of interesting if you get Mitchkov, a Russian buddy out there in Salayev, but no, it's going to be Berkeley Catton. It should be Berkeley Catton. It's still available. I love Berkeley Catton, and I think it was Tony Ferrari who said it's like he's not the biggest guy out there, but it's not like we're talking about a 5'8", 150-pound forward here. We're still talking about a guy who it seems like whenever he wants to commit to being better at something, he gets better at it. And the one thing that really stood out at the draft combine was he said he spent hours every single day last summer just shooting pucks as much as possible to just get a better shot because he felt disappointed in his own goal output. Then you see him at the Hlinka Gretzky, scores 8 goals. You see him in the regular season this year, 54 goals. Just so much upside there. And if he's the one who's passing to Mitchkov, you're going to need the Flyers need a lot of help, no question about it. But the one thing that team's really lacking is a really good long-term centerman to play with Michkov. And there's the question though: could Catton play wing? I think that.
Yeah.
I still think, you throw him there with Michkov and you're still going to be really good no matter what. So I'm happy with that.
Are the concerns founded, Cam, that he might not be a center, or is that just people looking at the height and weight?
Personally, I think he's a winger. I do. And that's not a knock on his game, really. Like, he's fearless. Like, he drives the paint, but at his size, 5'11's not a killer to play the middle of the ice, but being so slight. And he doesn't look like the type of frame that's going to really beef up when he hits his early 20s. Like, he looks like he's got, kind of those bird bones on him. Little Elias Pettersson, but he's not 6'1" or 6'2". So I do think he's a winger, which would give me the pause to draft him as a center iceman, which is why he probably ends up slipping closer to this zone or in this realm. But electric skills. And I've dropped this stat a couple of times. Is like, going back for this century here, the players who have scored more than 50 goals and more than 115 points in the CHL in their draft eligible seasons: Sidney Crosby, Patty Kane, Connor Bedard, and now Berkeley Catton. Oh. So statistically, he's hanging with some pretty fun players. He's good. He's very, very good. So if Philly nabs him and they, I don't know if he's the perfect match for Michkov at even strength, but on the power play, they'd have some fun together. That's for sure.
Minnesota, what Cam is saying is he's a future Hall of Famer.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's just may as well get that face thing done for the Hall right away here. Let's go.
Right. Yeah.
You get to pick for Bill Guerin in Minnesota at number 13, Cam. They've done very well in the draft of late, and they've only got a couple more years left of the Suter Parise punishment. They should be very well positioned to be competitive coming out of that, given how tight they've had to be with salary, how much room's opening up, and the prospect system. Who do you add to it at 13?
Yeah, I mean, they made one kind of blunder there last year, going Charlie Stramel and Billy Guerin. I asked him the question in the scrum right afterwards, and he just straight up said it. He's like, I jumped the list. Like, I was like, oh, usually they don't say that when they do it, but GMs make the first pick, and he fully said they left him on the board. So like Gabe Perreault, nah. Oliver Bonk, both those guys would look a whole lot better than Charlie Stramel. So I do think that they are still looking for that power center, which is what Guerin really wants, which Michael Branzig-Nygaard is sitting right there for them. But I also think that they probably aren't expecting Anton Salayev to still be on the board. I might get in trouble from some guys in Minnesota because I don't actually know how they feel about him, but I'm going to give him Salayev here just because it isn't too often you get a 6'7" defenseman who can skate like this guy can. He can really fly out there, and that alone is going to afford him 15 years in the NHL. Like, he is going to play, and he's going to play big minutes. And, I don't think he's going to put up many points, but like, he's someone that can grow into being just like a true suffocator on the blue line, right? Like, so I used to joke that is Tyler Myers or Rasmus Ristolainen? Well, no, those guys had offense and they didn't have defense. This guy has defense and he doesn't have offense, right? So no, we'll give him Salayev here just because he's just such a unique player. The upside there to be a top pairing guy versus like grabbing a guy who's maybe a middle six center.
I've been asking scouts the question: is he Alexiak or Larson, or is he a Chara? Because that's kind of more of the comps. It's going to be a guy that's defense first, right? But there's a huge, you could park a few cruise ships between those players, right?
Exactly, right? Because Chara was putting up 50-plus point seasons. It took him a while to get there. Like, I don't think he really popped until he was like late 20s, early 30s. But he's his own kind of monster, that guy. I tell you, he's fun. He's fun to watch, and sometimes it's fun because you're like, what the hell was that? But and then other times you're like, what the hell was that? Like, he's just like, he's so long, and he can step up and he can lower the boom, defends the line really well, and playing in the K is no easy feat for a draft eligible kid, right? Like, right? It doesn't happen too often.
Steven, your thoughts on the largest prospect that I think we'll see in the first round?
He's tall.
He is.
So, that's breaking news. So the sphere is very big in Vegas, and Salayev could stand beside it. But I think with him, I still think I could. He told me when I talked to him last week that he really wants to focus on becoming a more offensive player and be able to do more stuff with the puck. I wonder, if we're talking about him still like potentially putting up 30 points, and I don't think, I think there's some offensive thing that can maybe get him there. Obviously, he's not showing it yet, but he's still young. He really focused on being, defensively a rock this year. That's what he said, and he really wants to work this summer on becoming better with the puck, shooting the puck more, being better at putting power behind that shot and using his strength. So if he's able to do that, maybe he becomes a 30-point defenseman. But at this pick, no question about it, I'm taking it.
Okay, we at 14, we get San Jose's second pick. I believe they're the first team to get their second selection of the draft here, with the Carlson trade pick coming from Pittsburgh. This is to you, Steven. Who do the Sharks get to add to Macklin Celebrini in this first round?
Well, they've got some good centermen in the system. They've got some good forwards overall. So it's time to take a defenseman, and it is Stan Solberg out of Norway. He is violent. He is mean. And then he gets off the ice and he might have the funniest stories to say. He was the one that mentioned at the draft combine that the reason he got put to defense was because one of the players on his team decided to pee in the team shower. And he got sat for that game, and Solberg went and started playing defense instead. And the rest is history. But, yeah, he's got the size. Didn't score a lot this year in Norway, but I think he showed at the World Championship that he's no slouch with the puck. And I think he's getting better at also just kind of using the traffic in front to kind of time his shot there to be a bit better, because I remember watching some clips early and he was just shooting directly at players and it wasn't going in. And I think that you look at the picture there, like he just looks like he's mad at something, right? And that's kind of up there. He likes to go out there and punish players. So I feel like, he's had a really good second half of this year. And I think that World Championship really helps him, where he showed like, man, he could match up against anybody out there. He did it against Bedard, and we know how creative Bedard is. And he kept going out there and stopping him. He does take some dumb penalties from time to time. He does make some mistakes in that element, but I think that, if you need a guy who can just go out there and create havoc and move the puck away from your own goalie, Solberg's a good pick.
And you leave Carter Yakimchuk on the board. Cam, we go to you with Detroit at 15. What are the Wings looking for? What are they missing? And are they salivating running up to the podium here or not?
They're happy to run up to the podium, but they're not salivating over Carter Yakimchuk.
Okay.
They've got those players in their system already. I think they'd be somewhat redundant.
ASP last year, Axel Sandin-Pellikka, right?
Yeah, and they got Mo Seider, and they've got this big Swede. I'm spacing on his name. It's Simon Edvinsson. They've got some players coming up their way. So I talked about Pat Verbeek and company. They don't really care what everybody else thinks. Steve Yzerman, that guy's never cared about anything. Right?
Yeah, that's
about anything that anyone else thinks. Anyways, exactly right. Yeah, the next Lou 2.0 here in Stevie Y, and he's going up there and he wants to inject some high-end forward talent into this pipeline. And there's one player sitting there with a whole lot of it, and he's got a whole lot of noise attached to his name, Trevor Connolly at number 15. And I mocked this up somewhere else as well, putting Connolly at 15. And it took about an hour before I got a couple of texts from people and league sources being like, not crazy. That this kid is, I had the quote from way back in September when I was at the USHL Fall Classic. One executive told me top 10 skill, bottom 10 character, which is ouch. But you can't question this kid's skill. And, I spent a little bit of time with him in Helsinki there at the U18s. Very nice, very polite to me, obviously knows who I am and probably isn't looking to ruffle any feathers at this stage of the game. But I think he can work with this player, and I think the noise will die down. Obviously there'll be some heat on draft day that weekend, and then it'll all kind of fade away. But he's got the height. He needs a lot of filling out, which will only kind of improve his game. He's got good feet. He's got excellent hands. He loves to carry the puck. He's creative. He can score. He can dish it. Sometimes his passing was too creative for the USHL level. But what really kind of put it over the top for me was his play at the U18s, where he wasn't the guy. Tri-City, he was number one for everything. Airlifting onto that US team, third line, playing with CJ Mooney. And, cycle game, getting pucks, keeping them low, getting him to the net front, battling, playing smart defensively. And he did it, and he did it well, and he took that role. Yeah, he took the dumb penalty at the end of the gold medal game that cost him the medal. But, overall, I think it was a very successful tournament for him, and he has what's left on the board here. He has the highest pure upside of a forward. Detroit needs a little bit of that, and they're taking him at 15.
Are there certain markets that can't handle this kind of PR, and there are other markets that can live with more, or is it long enough ago and sort of hearsay enough that you can skate on this, Steven? I guess The incident, the one of the incidents of note was that he posted something on a personal social media account where he had turned some sort of objects into a swastika, and that's not good. How do teams approach this? Because as Cam said, it's top 10 talent.
Yeah, and I don't think you go any higher than this. I think this is kind of a good fit, and we know Connolly has been involved with USA Hockey in a lot of events, and them being based in Plymouth, you do see a lot of Red Wings people there, and I think it'd be a good fit because you see the skill, the talent, whether it be the U18s, where again he was awesome as that third line player. LJ Mooney I don't even remember who their centerman was. It didn't matter. It was
Humphreys, I think.
Yeah, this feels like good. Also, just a side note, LJ Mooney, he's related to Logan Cooley, but what did we learn, Cam, was his LJ stood for?
Lil Jon.
Lil Jon.
Yeah, we love Lil Jon. Yeah.
Anyways, but yeah, there's definitely going to be some markets that are going to be a little more hesitant to do it. I do think it's something that, again, it seems like some teams are more confident in the way he's kind of acted in the last year or so to kind of say like, hey, this wasn't me, like this one incident with the swastika. The issue is there were other incidents that it wasn't just an isolated thing. But I think a lot of teams are looking and saying like, okay, like what he did when he was 12, 13, we're not too worried about it at 17, 18. We'll see. I think though, again, from a talent perspective, like this is a guy who could be a top line player in the NHL.
Okay. Let's go to 16, St. Louis. That is Steven Ellis that gets to jump in and decide who the next person wearing the blue note is.
This is very difficult, but...
And is it just me or is Carter Yakimchuk the slide is on? Like this is the biggest dropper so far, right?
I don't love the Blues prospect pool, so why not just take a chance on Carter Yakimchuk, hope he can fix his skating and his defense and just kind of go from there. And we'll see, I think you see the goals, you see the penalty minutes, you see the points, like that's a very unique thing. And the good news is, even though his defense isn't great, between him and Caden Lidstrom was the guy that no matter who I talked to in the WHL was always getting mentioned as one of the hardest players to play against. And that has to mean something. People don't want to go one-on-one with him. The skating can be fixed. The defense, the issue is with how many good defensemen there are. If you can't actually play defense, you are going to slide. But I think with this one here, there's enough upside to be interesting. Is St. Louis the team that should be betting on the upside? Maybe they go pick a more safe guy. I don't know. I just think that it would be pretty cool to see him passing to Dalibor Dvorsky in a few years.
Washington at 17, Cam, as we pick up our pace here on the mock draft here on Flames Nation for Barnburner. Washington is the first playoff team that gets to select here, and many suggested they weren't a playoff team. They got swept. Whatever it is, they get to add to some cupboards that aren't exactly bursting at the seams.
They're not bursting, and they need everything, and they need high-end skill. But there is a player who maybe doesn't project a high-end skill that is right for the picking, and it's Michael Brandsegard. I'm a big fan of him, even though he was a little underwhelming at the World Juniors when we were over there. Still good. I just wanted him to dominate on that Norwegian team, be their best player head and shoulders. But, his club playing in the Hockey Allsvenskan, he's good. Like, he is big. He's hard to play against. He has good details to his game. He has good enough skills to project that it's like he could play in the top six. On a cup contending team, he's like your ideal third line center. But realistically, he's probably going to play second line center on most teams where he gets drafted. So I think Washington, it's like you're picking at 17. This kid is highly likely to be an NHLer and a quality one for a long time, and very, very close to being NHL ready. We talk about obviously Celebrini number one, but Levshinov, Hellenius, Brandsegard. Those are kind of the guys that are the closest to being able to step in. So he probably plays his season in the SHL, signs, comes over, gets his feet wet in the AHL at the end of next season, and then he's pushing for a club spot, 19, 20 years old, full-timer at 21, I think, for sure. So a really strong player who I wouldn't be surprised if he goes much earlier than this in real life.
Steven, we get to Chicago. They get their second pick of the first round. They had a pick swap with the Islanders, just trying to shuffle up a bit. They get into the late teens. In exchange for a pick in the 20s. Why not? What do the Hawks look for here? They added Levshunov with your guidance at pick number 2.
Well, they traded moved up 2 spots for a reason, so they must like somebody. And I do wonder if that guy is someone who plays locally in Michael Haig out of the Chicago Steel, a centerman who, there's a lot to like there. I got to watch him play in the Toronto Junior Canadiens a couple of years ago, and he probably was going to go first overall in the OHL draft had he not made it clear he was going to do the USHL and the NCAA route. He did miss most of last year, so he had to play a lot of catch up, but I felt like we saw that, no question about it, that he really kind of lived up to expectations. I thought that had he been invited to the U18 World Championship team for Canada, he would have been a big part of that. I just think that he's a good two-way player, that he's had to overcome some tragedy in his life with some family members, and it just never seemed to kind of slow him down. He's always been just so focused, so smart, and talking to people that he's played with at other levels, whether it be Celebrini, or the B. Henry Muse back in the GTHL, they just have nothing but good things to say about him. And to put up those numbers, he's a bit feisty. He's not afraid to hit guys. I think he'd be a good fit there, especially, there's some question marks on some of the Blackhawks. They got a lot of centers. Are they going to move some of those guys to the wing? That could open up an opportunity for him here.
Okay, interesting. The Hawks stay local. They've got a defenseman and a forward. The Sharks went forward, then defense. They're the first two teams to have multiple selections in round one. And congratulations, Cam, to whoever you pick next. They're the next Vegas Golden Knight first rounder to be traded, because I think aside from Brisson, everyone else has been moved. Where do you go with Vegas at 19?
Yeah, this one, it's true. He'll here for a short time, not a good time, right? So we're going to Russia, though. We're going Igor Chernyshov here. Burgeoning power forward with skill, split his season in the MHL and the KHL. Didn't get a ton of minutes, obviously, but when playing in the K, they asked him to play a north-south up and down game, get in on the forecheck, make sure you get pucks deep, be defensively responsible. He did it. You go play in the MHL, skills pop. So I think he's a player that could really fit a lot of different roles and a bit of a chameleon, a bit of a Swiss Army knife in that regard, and has the high level skill and the kind of the flash that we like to see in a top 20 pick. Maybe he would have gone sooner if he didn't have the Russian birth certificate too.
Okay, interesting. Pick number 20. The Islanders moved back with Chicago. I believe somehow this is tied to a Brandon Hagel trade way back in the day. This is number 20 overall. Lou Lamoriello now holds it, the third GM to hold this pick. Where do you go at 20, Steven?
I'm going to go with Sacha Boisvert out of Muskegon. He's from Trois-Rivières, a player who, if you don't know anything about Trois-Rivières, it's a very French part of Quebec, and he had to do a lot of learning of the English, I should say. But, he's a player that, talking to scouts and just talking to teammates, they got nothing but positive things to say about him. You see the goals, you see the work ethic, you see the points, the penalty minutes there. Like, he's an aggressive player. And it's funny because, I remember talking to him, and I'm 6 foot. Seeing him, I think it was 6'2", and then it just didn't feel like he was overly huge. Like he wasn't going to be able to beat me in an arm wrestle necessarily. But you go watch him on the ice, and he's out there pushing guys around and doing kind of everything about that. He's working on getting his power game to be a bit better. But I think it's a guy that probably could have been a star in the QMJHL, but he picked a route here where he really wanted he saw how good the USHL was. I think he took good advantage of that, and watching him create stuff, especially early in the season where it was Matvei Gridin, watching what he could do, but just all the smarter plays were coming out of Sacha Boisvert, who's got a really good brain, I should say. But I know that wasn't very eloquent, but I do like him. Let's just put it that way. I like him there. I think that he could, if he went higher, I wouldn't be too surprised.
Islanders take Boisvert at centerman at number 20. Cam, you've got the LA Kings at 21. They can't move this player for Pierre-Luc Dubois, nor can they include him in a trade to send him away. It's been a turbulent calendar year for Rob Blake. It's either the best or worst trade of his career. I'll tell you in 5 years. What do you make of where the Kings are at, and what do they try to do here?
Yeah, I think this pick is, again, not who I would be picking, but I think that he goes around this spot, and he's a very safe player, and it's Jet Luchenko. He's a hard-nosed right shot center who has good feet, good details to his game, put up over a point a game this season. He's a player that, every time you talk to people on the team side, is that they're like, he's going early. He might go in the teens. So, playing in Guelph this year, he kind of reminds you of Yanni Gort. So he's got the speed and the effort, the physicality. He'll probably be like a fan favorite. just a very safe pick here at 21 or whatever it is. Yeah, he's one that's going to leave a little talent on the board for them, a little upside, but you're getting yourself a player.
Yeah, and with a team that's got Byfield and a bunch of other talented forwards, middle six center, is that fair? Yeah. We see a third line center.
Yeah, okay. That's right.
Nashville at 21, Steven. Who gets to get welcome to Music City?
See, I think they should be picking a defenseman here, and I want to go out and say Adam Yurachek here, someone whose season ended early at the World Juniors, and I think that this would be an opportunity next year to kind of just see, how far away, how much did that time away from the game hurt him? Because he actually, last I checked, he hasn't started skating yet. Jeez. You see, he didn't put up a ton of points this year, but he was playing some difficult matchups up there. And to be playing as a pro at the age he was, I still think means something there. So we'll see what happens. I think there's a lot of upside. He's not 1-for-1 just like his brother, but he was able to just be from every level that I got to see him play at, just seemed to be a step ahead of most players from his country. And I think that, he probably would have gotten a lot more comfortable after the World Juniors playing against men, and we'd be talking about someone who maybe have gone higher. So I think this is a bit of a steal just because of his injury.
Tough year for him, Cam, with the injuries, because what was the hype preseason? Top 10, top 5 potentially? Like, what are the top D there? What were the thoughts before the season?
Some people liked him at that high. I've always really been concerned with his feet. So he was never that high on my board, but absolutely in some public eyes that he was considered a top 10 talent. So at this part of the draft, I think it's fine to swing on and see what you can make out of him.
Pick 23 goes to Toronto as Brad Treliving makes his second selection. He was barely feet on the ground in Toronto last year when they nabbed Easton Cowan, which looks like a very, very good pick, albeit very early. What do they do here at 23? Cam?
I mean, they haven't taken a D in the first round since Rasmus Sandin, and we know what's going on with that blue line. They need some help at some point. But there are some forwards that I like. I'm torn up here a little bit. But you know what? I'm going to give him one of my favorite players though, just because I can, and it's EJ Emery. He's a right shot defenseman. He is an athlete. Like, the kid literally jumped out of the box at the combine, and now they have to make it longer because he broke the record by so much. Like, he is so, just explosive in that regard. And the way that he can surf across the neutral zone and just squash rushes before they get a chance to even begin, I love it. Like, I had someone tell me at the U18s there that teams actively game plan to Cole Hudson's side. Like, stay away from EJ. Like, we don't attack that side. So to me, it's like, a guy like Chris Tanev, like, his value, right, has just grown exponentially over the years. And this is like the kind of upside you could maybe hope for with EJ Emery, is that not putting up points, you're not looking to even tag him down for 30. I think he's got enough skill to move the puck, and we see that. And in the offensive zone, he can move the puck around a little bit as well, but it's all about the rush defense, in zone defense, blocking shots, killing penalties. Just one of these guys that I think has, top 4 upside for sure. And maybe even a little bit more just as that kind of that unique piece as a true, modern day defensive defenseman.
24 goes to Colorado. The Avalanche have got big issues. 2 years removed from a Stanley Cup, but what do you do with Nichushkin? There's a lot of expensive players there. There's also a lot of great players there. And maybe they get the return of Gabriel Landeskog. Steven, what do they do here? I don't know that Landeskog will be around when this player makes it to the NHL if they do.
Yeah, who knows? I'm going to go with, I'm thinking Liam Greentree here. I like the guy that this year had to do so much for the Windsor Spitfires, and I could see him going higher because you see how many points he put up this year without a ton of goal support, and that size, that's a good mix. My one concern was it felt like he tried to do way too much too often, and that kind of hurt him in a lot of cases. But I think that if he goes out there and he can add a bit more pace to his game, he's going to be a top 6 player in the NHL. I just think that he's got the skill and the size that he's going to be difficult to play against, and would be really good for, if Nichushkin's not part of the long-term plans. Here's a guy who can not play the exact same role, but he'll go out there and be difficult to play against.
25 is Ottawa. I believe this pick was swapped for both Tyler Bertuzzi and Alex DeBrincat, if I'm correct. It ends up in the paws of the new general manager in Ottawa, their second pick of round number 1. They took Beckett Seneke at number 7. What do the Sens do here, Cam?
They're bringing somebody home. That's what they're doing. They're bringing Cole Baudin home, who's one of my favorite players as well. just the type of player that gets you excited because he's a physical monster. Like we were playing a little sewer ball outside on one of the practice days there in Finland. And like this kid's one leg was both of mine. Like he is just a truck already. Some people might think that kind of limits what he's going to do developmentally because he is already 6'2", 200 pounds, just shredded, but just an incredible work rate, never quits on a play. He can overwhelm just with his energy and his physicality alone. And, good enough skill to score 30 goals or nearly that or in a point a game in his draft year too. And he's a Canada kid. So I think that would be a really fan favorite pick. And he's a future fan favorite of one of these guys that can play in all different sorts of situations for you. It'd be a physical menace. And one of these guys, we see it every year, right? In the playoffs, size counts.
Kent Hughes pulled some magic with Sean Monahan. He takes a first from the Flames, which he'll get next summer, be it the Florida pick or the Calgary pick. Then he re-upped Monahan after another injury-plagued season and got him on a low UFA deal, then sent him to Winnipeg for another first. So borrowing Sean Monahan and getting 2 firsts out of it is what they've done. They pick a 26 with Winnipeg selection. Where do they go, Steven?
Now, we had Caden Lidstrom going to Montreal, correct?
Caden Lidstrom went to Montreal at 5. They've got the centerman from Medicine Hat.
Well, let's bring his buddy up with him, Andrew Basha. I know it's a bit of a
Calgary boy.
But did you know he actually speaks a lot of French?
Really?
I didn't know that to the combine. He's very he actually did a bunch of his interviews in French. But you see the goals, you see the points, and Lindstrom called him one of the hardest working players out there that he got to play with this year. And I think it helped that when people were going out there to watch Lindstrom play and see what he was able to do, they say like, oh, this guy could score, this guy could put up points, and he can play with anybody out there. I think that he's got, he's a really good playmaker, not far off of 60 assists. I think if he could just round his game out, I think this would be a really good pick for the Canadians.
Okay. And by the way, his dad owns a pub that's just a few blocks away. We've been thankful and privileged to be able to help pay for that child's upbringing. Okay. We'll move to pick number 27. Shout out the Garrison. Carolina 27. Oh, it's the first pick for the guy with 27 copyrights and patents and, NASA and a fellow at some institution I never heard of. Eric Tulsky started writing about hockey and is now the general manager of the Carolina Hurricanes. What's he doing here? I believe it is Cam with the selection.
Lady, your husband's putting my kids through college. Right. I think that I'm torn here because Carolina, those guys they're doing some smart work over there all the time. Yes. Unsurprising with Tulsky and now. So it's I kind of want to give him Tarek Periskak just because it's on paper, it's here's a big old upside. But I'm going to give him Dominic Badinka. Okay. Ooh. I'm giving him Badinka, 6'3" right shot defender who played the majority of his season in the SHL. You don't see that too much on the blue line either. Similar thing that we were talking about with Chernyshov. They asked him to play a role, and that role was defensively responsible, and he did it. Then he drops down to the J20, skills pop. I think there's a lot of upside, and this kid's a real sleeper to sneak into that first round and be an impactful top 4 guy. And so Carolina, they're all about mining for value, the upside, and this kid's got upside too. So I like that for them, and I'm giving them Badinka.
5 selections left in round number 1 in our mock draft. Big thank you to Village Honda, McLeod Law, and Betway for helping us bring together both Cam Robinson, Steven Ellis, and all the knowledge of what the heck these GMs might do. Conroy picks at 28. It's the Vancouver selection. It's the highest pick outside of the Final Four. And a shame it is for the Flames. They would have got another pick, compensatory pick, conditional pick, for beating Edmonton. That didn't happen, if I need to refresh anyone's memory. The Flames did go Sam Dickinson, the defenseman, at number 9. Where do they go at 28, Steven?
This is so difficult. I'm thinking this is...
Walk us through your thoughts here. This is Calgary. We can expand a little bit. What are you weighing? Who are you back and forth between?
So I'm going to go with Dean Letourneau. Okay. I really like Dean Letourneau. There's one comment, because I'll tell a quick story. So I was... The night I was planning to propose to my now fiance, I went to go watch St. Andrews College play some hockey, just to kind of kill some time before my plan. And I was just so in love with watching Letourneau going out there and just walking up to Will Zellers and Aiden Park and basically just one hand knocking them down like it's nothing, and just going out there and creating some great plays. to the point where I actually almost missed my entire plan and almost screwed up everything about how I was going to propose to my fiance that night.
You were so in love with Letourneau, you forgot to propose to your girlfriend. That's incredible.
Yeah, so Letourneau, you're invited to my wedding. It's kind of the thing where you see a guy like him and you see a 6'7", 209, 210-pound forward, and you say Tage Thompson, and the similarities are there. I was a big Tage Thompson fan in his draft year, and I think with the thing that Letourneau does, and one kind of mentioned to me that same night, was there's just times where Letourneau can just take over the puck and just do things that only Dean Letourneau can do. Now, playing in the prep hockey conference is not exactly, the highest level of hockey, but I think the one thing you see is players of that size and that skill and who can move like him, there's just a lot to like there. I do wonder what type of role he plays in the NHL, but if he comes close to Tage Thompson, heck, that's awesome. I think, he's not going to go out there and kill people. You see here, not a ton of penalty minutes, but he's strong. He's hard to take the puck off, and that's kind of the thing about the size. You don't want a guy to be big and just elbowing everybody or cross-checking people. You want people that are hard to play against, and we see that from him. Is he going to be able to go and dominate with the hands that he has in the NHL? No, I don't think so. We saw that in some USHL competition where he didn't exactly shine by any means. But going to watch him play college next year will be a really interesting thing, because I think he'll go out there and be difficult to play against right from the get-go. I don't want him to be another Charlie Stramel. I don't think he's going to be that. I like him a lot. And, so we'll see.
127 points in 56 games at the AAA U18 level, 25-14 in that prep conference you talked about. And then he finished with 2 at the USHL Boston College next year. Feels like a project, Cam. Is that fair?
Oh yeah, for sure. But I like that. I like that swing. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes in the teens. Dude's got a 7-foot wingspan and handles the puck like a little winger. It is impressive what it could become. I like that he's going to BC next year too, that he's not going to the USHL where he'll just dominate in the same way that he kind of did at prep school. Yeah. And be challenged and have to learn how to create in translatable ways.
Last 4 picks, Dallas Stars. They also couldn't reel in a conditional pick for the Calgary Flames. What do they do at 29, Cam?
They're going out west, and they like drafting out west from time to time here. Logan Stankoven is a good example of that. They're going Ryder Ritchie, one of the youngest players in the crop. Didn't have much to work with in Prince Albert this year, but he still produced a point a game, and he really popped offensively internationally, right? He had a great start to the year at the Holenka, really jump-started the season for him. And then I think he had a really strong finish too at the U18s with Canada. So the feet aren't dynamic, but he knows how to operate in tight spaces. He knows how to create plays. He's got great vision. And I think the Stars are kind of that player development system that they can work with him and bring about the best in his game.
Dad was Byron, who Flames fans will remember. He goes to Dallas at 29. The Rangers at 30. Steven, they will have one more pick than I thought they would have when San Jose wanted to trade for Barclay Goodrow, but they just waved him over there instead. What do they do with their first rounder here?
I'm going to go with Charlie Elick. A good combination of size and speed. I think he will be a solid pickup for them. I don't know how much upside there's going to be for a guy who doesn't really shoot the puck and doesn't have a lot of those offensive traits, but he's almost 200 pounds. I think he's closer to 6'4" than he is at the bottom of 6'3" at this point, and he can play with a mean streak. So someone like that I think would be pretty popular in the Rangers system.
Philadelphia or Anaheim. We will find out who has picks 31 and 32. Cam, I suppose, will shake being Pat Verbeek or Danny Briere and just tell me who you'd like to see selected at 31. Best left on your board, your last pick of our mock draft.
Well, I got to get into character. I need to know. I'm Pat Verbeek. All right, I'm picking for the Ducks, and I'm giving them
God bless you. Yes, okay, we'll take it.
Right,
we'll take
and I'm sticking with the fans. They want to see that too.
Yes, they do.
So yeah, we're giving them Periscak. The kid produced, right? As a rookie in Prince George, stepping onto a team, a juggernaut team, but he was allow me to just walk in as a first line winger and score 50 goals or nearly. I think he did score 50. He's really opportunistic. The feet aren't maybe elite. But every time I saw him live, I was like one game he had 5 primary points. Another one where he had the puck 3 times and he scored on 2 of them. It's just he doesn't need much to create. And so for the Ducks, they're we'll take them off first, and then we'll grab ourselves another potentially high-end winger here with our next first-round pick. And And one of them is going to work. We know which one. But.
Why didn't he get to major until this year, or does it matter? Because scouts, they only have one sort of year against the competition they like to measure against. Steven, is it worry you or not? Is it a feet issue? Is it late growth? Is it a guy that's late to the sport? What do we know?
I don't know too much about his story up to this point. Do you know, Cam, as to why he was playing AAA?
Well, he was playing edge, right? Like he was playing at the prep school there, and I think like he did have a couple of games in the dub, but he's not a full late birthday. But I just think that like Prince George is such a strong team that he just didn't have the opportunity to really make that team. They thought that he would be better served playing another year of prep school, and he was like a 4th or a 5th round pick or something in the Western League draft. Like he wasn't supposed to be this player. Those guys usually, if you're not a first or second round, you're probably not stepping in until you're 17 anyway. So that's kind of what he did. And then he just popped. Okay.
Thank you for that. Last pick of the draft goes to Steven, who is the general manager named Danny Briere. God bless you, Panthers. Steven, take it away. Our final pick of the mock draft.
I will say I've seen him a lot at USA Hockey Arena, and I've noticed him writing on his notebook a bunch of times when Teddy Stiga touches the puck, and I like Teddy Stiga a lot. I have him number 17 in my rankings.
Wow.
I know it's probably higher than most, but I just love Teddy Stiga. Every team could use a guy like Teddy Stiga. I think the one thing we saw at that U18 tournament in particular was every shift, every first time he hit the ice, he wanted to hit somebody. He wanted to set the tone. And you talk to James Hagens, the top prospects of 2025, and always pointed and said, like, this guy does so much for us. Last year, he was a pretty small player, got injured a couple times, just did not look physically up for the challenge. He spent last summer trying to improve that, and he did. And, he's been touted as a leader by the coaching staff for USA Hockey. He's learned to play with that edge. He's not afraid of any physical battle. He can score goals. He can set guys up. And, they bounced around a couple different line mates there of James Hagens, including Cole Eiserman, and they played together last year. But it felt like Hagens was most dangerous when Teddy Stiga was out there. And he brings that energy. He brings that offense. I like him a lot.
Amazing. So there it is. Pick number 32, Teddy Stiga, the defender, off to Philadelphia because, of course, of the huge Panthers Cup win. Please. Again, we're recording this on Monday. Fellas, thank you so much for this. Appreciate it very much. If there's one guy left on your board you just want to love up, maybe some ceiling to chase, or a guy that you just have way higher than everyone else, is there one name you want to throw at us here? I know we heard Hudson's name, but he didn't get picked. That's one defenseman that some people are high on, but there's lots of guys out there at this point.
Steven, you want to go first?
I'm going Aaron Kiviariu. He got hurt at the beginning of the season. That really kind of limited him, and then he wasn't great at the U18s. But we just seen so much promise throughout the years. Like I swear we heard about him for the first time when he was 11 years old on HF boards. Like that's a name that's been around for a while because he was playing against older competition. He never really kind of got that big growth spurt I think a lot of people were hoping for, but he did look physically stronger when we watched him at the U18. So we'll see kind of what happens there. A lot of questions for a guy who didn't even play 20 games total this year. But I think what he does with the puck, the way he moves, there's a lot of upside. Cam, what do you got?
I'll stick in Finland and go Emil Hemming. 6'2", 200-pound shooter, right? Like the kids in the feet aren't bad. The boots aren't bad. It's the hockey sense, and maybe it's not elite, but like the kid knows how to fire the puck for sure. And, played 40 odd games in the league of this season, played at the World Juniors. They're like, be the 13th forward and just do simple stuff. Okay. One of the better players of the U18s, when he plays in the J20, he's like way over a point a game, almost a goal a game. So yeah, he's a player that I think that probably has first round juice for sure.
Awesome. Fellas, I want you to plug the work you've got here as we head towards the draft. Both of you have done such great stuff, and a lot of it's focused on the draft. Cam, I was flipping through the 1,900-page draft preview you guys have put together, you maniacs. Where do people find it? And tell us how in the world you could come up with 1,900 pages on this draft class.
We are nothing if not thorough. Hey, 1,900 pages for the draft guide. This year we did something fun though. We did the light version. So that's only 615 pages.
Well, God bless.
You want to print it off, right? Save your pennies and go to Staples there and print it off. But no, it's I can't obviously speak highly enough of the draft guide. It's our flagship product. It is everything you could need and want to know about the draft. We have our little badges telling you if the kid's a sniper, tools, you got that dog in them, shades of, where we compare them to players, all the analytics through our manually tracked data from Mitch Brown and Lassie Atlanin. Tons and tons of work graphically. Hans, our graphic guy, does just incredible work. And right now, 50% off deal on an EP premium subscription annually, right? That gets you the guide. That'll get you the fantasy guide in the fall. It gets you all our written content at Rinkside, all the advanced stats filters on elite prospects. Like you can't beat that deal right now, and it's running. So head over to Elite Prospects. You'll see the buttons all over the place to click it, sign up, stick around for the year, and we'll keep you around after that.
And Steven, you've been the prospect and draft guru at Daily Faceoff for a while, but you guys have obviously free agency coming up as well. What's I imagine you're just rammed till Friday here with talking about who might go where.
Yep, draft's going to be fun. I fly into Vegas Tuesday morning. I'll be there for the entirety of the draft. We're doing a lot of shows, Daily Faceoff Live, of course, Morning Cup of Hockey. There's going to be a lot of shows, as you know, that are going to be there. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to that. I've been doing kind of daily profiles on players every day for a month leading up to the draft. And, it's going to be very exciting when it's over, only to remember there's an overnight flight leading into free agency, and it's going to be a pain in the butt, but it's a good time of year.
Yeah, so if you don't melt, we wish you all the best with free agency. Fellas, thank you so much. Appreciated the ton. Respect the hell out of the work you've both done, and can't encourage people enough to go check out your work at dailyfaceoff.com for Steven and eliteprospects.com and the Rinkside stuff as well for Cam Robinson. Fellas, a pleasure. Thank you so much. Hope we see you in Vegas.
See you there.
Absolutely.